Welcome everybody, this is How to English Teach and Learn with Gav and Em.
It's a podcast about teaching and learning English as a foreign language.
All opinions stated are personal and references will be given when necessary.
It's episode 9 of Gav and Em's How to English pod. Are you ready?
I'm ready, Gav.
Are the followers ready?
Well, I don't know, but too bad if they're not. We're going to go for it, yeah?
Let's just begin anyway. I have compiled a list of things that happened during the week, and I thought I'd share them with you today. Have you also done the same?
Yes, Gav, I have also a list of things that went right and things that went not so right, and comments and thoughts from my work week. And as we do every time, we're going to trade our little insights and ask each other advice and get lots of teacher tips, I suppose.
Exactly. On our TEFLing journey, we will share our knowledge with each other and hopefully with the followers. So what's on the top of your list, Em?
My first point is to always check the order of questions when doing a listening task.
And what on earth do you mean?
That does sound a bit cryptic. But
Surely it just starts from 1 and ends with 10.
No, it doesn't. You think it would. But no, sometimes you're in a book and they've got, let's say, 6 questions, not numbered, and they're just there. They're there in a column on the left and the right. 3 on the left, 3 on the right. And you think it would go in what order?
So you're describing a listening task that has a series of questions in the book where the students have to answer based on the recording and answer them.
Yeah, and in the order that they are on the page. But there's me thinking if you've got 3 questions on the left and 3 questions on the right, that it would automatically go in what order, Gav, would you guess?
I would guess it goes left to right, but I have done some exams in the past and you need to say to the students, sometimes the questions are in a different order to how they are presented in the recording.
And I would say the same, only that I think they go from top to bottom.
Left to right.
Left to right. And so I assumed that, but never assume because these books keep you on your toes.
Can I interrupt you, Em?
Yes.
Can you tell us how you set up this activity? I think I need to know right from the top.
Yeah,
which is usually where I start.
Yeah. I set it up with a little bit of a lead-in.
Was there banter?
No, we're not there yet. We talked a bit about interview techniques and we talked about questions that would be asked in an interview. And then I said, okay, we're going to listen to someone giving an interview. And there are 6 questions to answer and answer the questions as you see them here on the page.
Did you go through the questions with the students first?
I read them. Well, the student read them. We checked that the student understood all the questions, but we've just missed the fact that they weren't going to be in the order of the questions that you see.
You would assume they'd be in the same order.
Yeah, I know. They weren't. So that's all. Just a take home for everybody. Always listen to the recording before doing the recording.
Had you not listened to the recording first?
I must confess, no, I hadn't. It was pre-intermediate. I thought I'd be okay.
You thought everybody would be okay?
Yeah, that was the one that caught me out.
Lesson learned.
Hopefully. On the topic of listening, Gav, how do you make a listening task easier if your student is struggling? Because this particular student is at the end of the pre-intermediate book and it's getting harder and they are getting a bit lost.
Listening tasks. You could turn them into reading tasks.
But then it's not practicing the listening, is it? The skill is the listening. So it's just a way of making that easier.
You could read the audio to the student a bit slower.
Then the student's getting very familiar with your voice and nobody else's voice. Which
I think you already know the answer to this and you just want me to say it.
No, I'm eliciting some ideas. That doesn't mean I agree with all your ideas.
How about play the recording slower?
How do you do that?
Using a piece of equipment that plays things slower than they are normally played.
Can you do that in a Windows media player, for example?
I don't know, but there must be a media player that will do that for you.
That's good. Or you could chunk it.
Chunk it?
Break it down into chunks. So pause at 1 minute, let the student answer questions, think a bit more about it, and then start again.
Make sure the questions are in the right order as well.
Do that first. Yeah, that won't help if they're not in the right order. But yeah, you could do that as well. So you break it up. Slower, break it up.
Have you any other suggestions?
I think that's good. Just send it to them so they can listen to it in their own time with the transcript, or go through the transcript in the lesson with them.
I think you can turn it into a read and follow the words activity the first time. And then the second time, ask the student to answer some questions. And as you say, maybe break it down into chunks, one paragraph at a time or one section at a time.
Yeah, that's good advice.
I think you've already raised this topic with us before and possibly given us all the answers, but I still want to go back to what do you do if you have students with very different needs and interests for English? Because I seem to be facing lots of classes where the students have very different needs and interests.
There's nothing that unites them.
Well, I feel like I start talking to one student about what they're interested in. We might do a little activity, but the other students seem to be losing interest. And then I focus my attention on another student, but then the remaining students don't seem so interested. I'm not really sure. Have you got any advice?
Depends on the relationship with them and with you. But hopefully you've started the course off well and you've got them all, at least in the first lesson, talking to each other a little bit. I would just throw them under the bus in the way that if one person starts talking about a topic that nobody else seems interested in, I would demand questions from the rest of the class. I would say, right, student A is talking about this topic. Student B, think of a question to ask or feedback.
That's a good piece of advice. But what if the other students don't come forward with any questions?
You've asked them to, and they just sit there and say, I can't think of anything.
I don't really like forcing people into taking part.
No, I wouldn't do that either. But you could always frame it in a kind of, well, student A sounds like that's a challenge. Student B, have you had any challenges this week? And I know it's changing the subject, but it's at least getting them interacting a little bit.
You become a kind of mediator between the students. You're kind of connecting them, but to have their own separate interests.
Yeah. Some people do have very niche interests, and you can't expect everyone to want to talk about those interests. And I think as teachers, we do show a lot of enthusiasm, so students may find that to be a green light to talk about that interest. But I think they also need to understand that not everyone is interested in it. And as a teacher, that's great. Give them a bit of time. But I think the majority of the lesson has to be a common interest for everyone.
And focusing specifically on their grammar or vocabulary skills. What if some students need one thing and others don't?
That's another one that's quite a hard one. I think you have to be a super duper micro teacher. I might get a t-shirt with that, super duper micro teacher. And you have to give each student a little mini lesson each time. If they've said they want real hard correction on every error, then you really do that. And if others say they don't want any correction, they just want to practice their fluency, you let that happen. But make sure everyone understands that's what you're doing. And I might not be correcting that student and tell the other students because that student wants to practice fluency. Or I suppose make it a bit of a funny thing that, right, student C wants to really focus on prepositions or needs to focus on prepositions. So you'll hear me error correcting a lot of those sort of things.
Treat them like adults and explain to them exactly how you're going to be focusing on each individual student's needs.
Yes, it sounds like you've got a very hard class there to teach. Are you ready for what would Gav do, Gav?
I am ready for what would Gav do. Is this going to be a regular feature now?
It is already a regular feature. Every week I have a question. What would Gav do? So, new group, 7 students. Some of those students have been in a previous class, so I have taught them before. But I think I've kept track of what I've done with the old students.
What do you mean what you've done with the old students? You don't mean like buried them in the back garden, do you?
No, I mean activities, topics that I've already covered in the previous class that those students attended, and now they've joined a new class and I'm I'm kind of aware of the fact that they've already done some of the exercises I've got in my bag of tricks, but I may have just miscalculated on the one time one student, 10 minutes into the exercise, says, I've already done this.
Really?
The other 6 haven't already done this. What would Gav do?
I would pause, take a moment and say, yes, that's right. You attended one of my other classes and we did this activity and we're going to do it again.
Exactly what I did.
Because the other 6 students haven't done it.
Yeah.
But you can help me because you're teacher's pet today and you can help me clean the whiteboard at the end of the lesson.
As a reward or as a punishment, who knows? Yeah, that's pretty much what I did, and the student was happy enough. It wasn't a grammar exercise that was rigid or anything. It was a choose your favourite holiday type lesson, so it wasn't awful to repeat, I think.
It wasn't a question and answer activity where you got the same answer as the student had 2 years ago or whatever.
That's right. So there was a bit of flexibility there anyway.
I find that lots of my students are quite happy doing the same activities more than once because we do, as you said, get different answers.
Yeah, and maybe they feel a bit more confident if they've already done it and they feel a bit like they've got an advantage over the others.
Maybe.
Yeah, it turned out okay. I just had that horrible panicky feeling of, no, I don't have a backup.
And you'd planned so carefully, made such good notes about the previous courses, but you still slipped up.
I did.
Have you reflected on that and seen what was the reason you made that mistake?
I'm trying to remember. I think that it's hard to explain as well. The groups changed. They changed days. The students changed days because the course changed days and it didn't fit with them. And in the end, I got very mixed up with who was in which course. And I think I just completely forgot.
Did the students also change names?
Well, no, that was a constant, but everything else changed pretty much.
Well, that is very confusing, and I'm not surprised that you might make that teeny tiny error, and they should be open-minded enough to allow you to make a little boo-boo.
Exactly. It just threw me off a bit when the student that had already done that exercise then told me exactly the date we did it because he'd checked his email and seen the attachments and searched the name of the document we were using.
That's amazing.
It was quite impressive, yeah.
That's a thorough student.
It was all good. It was fine in the end.
That's what Gav would do. Just bury your head in the sand and just plough on through.
Yeah, not the worst thing that happens.
I've got a question for you. You may have heard this question before. I would like the answer. The question is, imagine coming from a student, with or without subtitles.
Excuse me? Imagine coming from a student with or without subtitles.
Well, that's what they often say to me. Gav, with or without subtitles?
Okay, with context as well is useful. You mean watching films?
Or TV series.
Or TV series. And your student says to you, Gav, should I watch that TV programme with or without subtitles?
Yes.
And you want to know what I think?
What would M say?
I would say without subtitles.
Really? That's so difficult.
No. It depends on the student. It depends on the level. If they're struggling to understand without subtitles, then I would say have it in English with English subtitles. And if that's difficult, have it in your language with English subtitles. And if that's difficult, well...
It's not time for you to watch English episodes.
You're not ready for it, yeah. That's it. I think those are all the options, aren't they, really? I always say to lower level students, watch a series that you know, that you've already watched in your own language, or even if it's a book, read a book you've already read. So at least you know the story, and that gives you an advantage, and then you can deal with the vocabulary and the grammar. But yeah, what did you say?
I said exactly the same thing, and I said, do what makes you happy, not what you think is the right thing to do, but is making you unhappy.
That's nice. Yeah, because it should be fun. I don't think it's a good idea for students to feel like it's a chore and something they have to do, because then their relationship with it becomes a negative one. And nobody wants that. We're on the same page with that one, Gav.
With subs.
With subs.
Or without.
Scrolling along the bottom of the page, left to right.
That's it.
That page. Gav, would you like a tea?
You know I only drink coffee.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that could be arranged.
Oh?
Followers, if you enjoy listening, watching, or reading Gavin M's How to English Pod, visit coffee.com/howtoenglishpod.
That's coffee, ko-fi.com/howtoenglishpod. And it would be lovely if you bought us a tea or a coffee to show us support. You could even get a mention on our show if you'd like.
Gav, have you noticed in your lessons that some students, when they're talking to you and they don't know the word that they're trying to think of, you've got two kinds of student, or maybe you've got more than two, but you've got some students that will just go onto Google or their dictionary and find that word without a moment's hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
You've got other students that will carefully describe the word, explain it to you so that you get an idea and that you can give them the word.
Or one of their classmates can help.
That's right. And then I suppose there are students that will just shout the word out in their own language and hope somebody knows it.
Unless it's a one-to-one.
Yeah. Well, sometimes they just say it anyway and look hopefully at me.
It might be similar in your language.
Sometimes is. But those two, I'm talking about the main two, the ones that look it up immediately and then the others that decide to try and describe it. What makes them different, Gav?
Personality, education, expectation, experience. There's a few different things.
It's a lot, isn't it? It could be a lot of reasons. And I agree with you about the way they've learned English in the past. Maybe they had a teacher that would just
tell them the word in their own language and then translate it directly into English.
Possibly.
Like having lessons in two languages.
So is it lazy or is it just a different technique? Do you think it helps to actually learn the word by describing it, or do you think it helps just to have it in your own language, or do you think it helps to see it immediately? It's in your head that you can visualize it. I always think it's bad to look in the dictionary, but maybe it's not.
It does depend on what your expectations are from the class and from that student. But I do always encourage my students to describe the words that they want me to tell them.
I say the same thing, because in the real world, you don't always have the option of quickly Googling a word. So I think it's just good practice.
But there are also students who want a very specific word, and they want that one word that's in their head translated directly into English. And I can't do that because I don't speak their language.
And they should have that, shouldn't they, if that's what they want?
I don't know. I think they should describe the word to me, and then I say, it's this word, hopefully. And then they can surreptitiously check on their favourite translation page.
Which often they do come back and say, oh, yeah, that is the right word. Yeah, I think I just encourage it as a rule to just work round it, describe it, because a lot of the time it's quite clear. And now and again you get a hard word that you don't know, and then maybe you should translate that word. But then the translation isn't always good, is it?
No, that's very true. I can think of an example recently where my student said they went to a forest and they saw, I shouted out, a squirrel. And they said, oh, what's that animal? I said, a squirrel. And they said, yeah, it's got eats nuts, got a long tail. I said, a squirrel. And they said, hold on. And they checked on their translation app and they said, oh, it's called a squirrel. And I said, yeah, it's a squirrel.
Perfect example.
I think sometimes they just don't hear you, or they don't want to hear you, or they just, as you said, maybe need to see it written down in front of them using an app.
Yeah, that is funny. I've had a lot of experiences like that too. It's a mode, isn't it? A certain student will get into a certain mode and they can't deviate from that process. It has to be on the screen, there, visible.
Mm-hmm.
But then you do have other students that Google it and they will come back with something like, yes, today I needed my hair to look perfect, so I used glue.
Glue?
And you think, that isn't the right word, but that's how it translated from their language. And then you have to say, I don't think you mean glue, I think you mean gel.
Oh, of course.
So you win some, you lose some, Gav.
Again, I think it might be the learning style, and maybe it's your job as a teacher to convert that student into a more
Trusting.
trusting, open, exchanging kind of attitude towards learning a language.
Right. You are right. It is trust, because some languages, for example, I was doing emailing last week and I was trying very hard to convince one student that Dear Gav is a very formal beginning in English. But I could see in her eyes she didn't really believe me, because in their language, dear is a very informal thing that you would call your mother, or,
It's pretty standard.
it's a very affectionate way to start.
Okay.
And I was saying, no, you wouldn't write in an email, "Hi, Mr. Smith." If it was a very professional, formal email to a client, you would have to write, "Dear Mr. Smith." But for her, it was the opposite, which is difficult if the student doesn't know you very well and thinks perhaps you're wrong. The other sentence that was quite difficult to explain was "thanks for letting me know," because she was convinced it was permission. Like, "Thank you for giving me permission to know."
Oh.
"Thank you for letting me know."
Oh, no.
Like letting me go out after 9 o'clock when I was a teenager.
Oh, yes.
So it's a lot of trust, isn't it? You say to your students, honestly, this is how it is and this is what we write. And they don't see it in their own language and they look at you like, really?
I do find it's quite beneficial to find a good website that has some example emails and then say, look, it's written here in black and white, and that's quite convincing to the students.
Definitely.
And then they don't have to take your word for it.
That's right. I had to do that today, actually. This morning, I had to Google tuxedo just to prove that tuxedo is what a tuxedo is.
What is a tuxedo?
A very formal dinner jacket, shirt, bow tie, suit thing.
And what did the student think it was?
Well, you probably know. They said it was a smoking.
A smoking.
And I said, you can't wear a smoking. Smoking in English is an action. You can't wear it. I think they mean smoking jacket, but it's a lot of languages, they call it a smoking.
Oh, okay. Because a smoking jacket is informal, isn't it? A smoking jacket is an informal men's style of lounge jacket originally intended for tobacco smoking, designed in the 1850s.
Okay.
That's what I thought, with the little lapels and everything.
Uh-huh. Well, I would say by our standards today it looks quite formal, but
Like
maybe...
a dressing gown.
Is it? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've never heard of it. I've never really seen one. But the point is that is not the word we use. And because in the students' language the word smoking is an English word, they think it must be smoking in English.
Oh, those false friends.
It is. Those false friends that are actually English words. So, yeah, you have to be very vigilant, Gav. And you really have to convince them that you know what you're talking about. And then they will trust you.
I trust you and I believe everything you said is correct so far today.
Thank you. But I've known you for a long time, so this is all fine and dandy for people you know well. But when you've got new students who look at you doubtfully, you may doubt yourself.
Don't worry, I'm always checking all of the things that you say throughout the show.
That's what you're doing on the keyboard.
On the Google.
That's what you're doing on your keyboard every time. Okay.
You remember we talked about giving advice last time?
Yes.
It was some good advice, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was very useful advice
Yes.
that one might apply to one's own life.
Yes.
Well, my students started using a different modal. This time, it was can.
Can for ability?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
But the problem was, my student didn't know how to use can in the past for something that didn't happen.
So not ability.
Well, I was slightly confused, but I think we got there in the end. The student said that a colleague had got in touch with her and said, "Can I have this?" And the student said, "No, it was possible yesterday, but it's not possible today."
Ah.
So it's an ability in the past, something that was possible to happen yesterday, but didn't happen.
Right.
So I came up with past modals of things that didn't happen. Is this ringing any grammar bells to you, Em?
Yeah, I think that is a good way to explain could have. I'm assuming you're getting to could have, as in it was possible for me in the past, but I didn't. Usually it's things like I could have gone to the gym yesterday, but I didn't go because I was on the sofa eating chocolate muffins.
Oh, I'm sure you were going to say ice cream.
Yeah, well, they go well together. I'm not saying it was only muffins.
It's not exclusive.
No.
Well, as I like to do from time to time, I say to my students, let's do a quick mini grammar activity. Do you want to do one with me, Em?
Love to, Gav.
I'm going to give you the present of what we can do today, but I want you to transform it in what we could have done yesterday.
Right.
But you didn't,
Okay.
because you were eating muffins.
So the ending of each of these sentences finishes with, but I didn't because I was eating muffins.
Or some variation of that.
Okay.
I can do it today.
I could have done it yesterday, but I didn't because I was eating muffins.
I can ask her.
I could have asked her, but I didn't because I was eating muffins.
I could buy it today.
I could have bought it yesterday, but I didn't because I was eating muffins.
All right, I've heard enough about your muffins. How about this one? I can't do it this week.
Oh, that's not past. Oh, sorry, you want me to change it to talk about,
Last week.
what was it again?
I can't do it this week.
I couldn't have done it last week.
Because
I was eating muffins.
on the sofa. I can't do it today.
I couldn't have done it yesterday.
Because
I was eating muffins.
on the sofa.
Yes.
With my ice cream. That's
Yes.
it. That's the end of our little mini activity. Well done, Em. We transformed present into past.
I think that works.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's good. And that works for could, should, would, all of those.
And before we get to the final part of the show, in which we're going to return to a previous topic. Do you remember what we talked about before?
You're referring to the travel quiz, I think we said.
I have a travel quiz all ready. It's all set up for us to take. But first of all, I've got a question for you, Em. Why, and this is a question for all the followers as well, I hope everybody's thinking about this question. It's why do students stop attending
Classes.
classes?
English classes.
Stop attending our classes, your classes, my classes, other classes, English classes, yes.
I can think of a lot of reasons.
Well, here we go. I'm going to make a list. Begin when you're ready.
Timetable conflicts.
Yeah.
Meetings that fall on the same day as your lessons. Too much work. Lack of motivation.
Oh, dear.
Hopefully not, but yeah. They feel like they've reached the highest level possible.
Oh, wow, I like that. Can I write reached their goal?
Yeah, happy with their English. Started a Spanish class.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Doing
Can
a
I say
different language.
change course?
Well, just doing a different language sometimes. Or, if it's English, they've moved to a higher course or they've moved to a lower course.
Well, hopefully not lower.
No, but it could happen. They might not like the teacher.
Oh, no.
They want a different approach, a different style of lessons. They can't afford it anymore. Their company has stopped paying for their lessons.
Oh.
They don't like the other students in the class.
I thought that. When you said not like the teacher, I
Yeah.
also wrote or other students.
Yeah. Maybe not even they don't like it. It's just maybe the wrong mix of people.
It's not a good fit for them.
Yeah. Maybe they want a one-to-one class. Maybe they want other people in the class. They want just more or fewer students. Health problems.
Yep.
I think we've covered it, really. Is there anything else?
I have got 2 other reasons why students may stop attending your classes. I wonder if the followers are also thinking of some
My classes specifically.
one's classes.
Okay. Give me a clue.
Maybe you are introducing somebody new to the world.
Oh, pregnancy.
Yeah, you're going to have a baby.
Yeah.
And the last one is when you get a bit older, you might decide to hang up your exercise books, put your pens and pencils into your pencil case, and just
Retire.
Doesn't
mean you should stop learning English. It just means you might not be getting free lessons at your company anymore, or you might want to do more gardening or something.
I was thinking gardening as well, but it doesn't have to be exclusively gardening. It can be anything else.
Just to pursue other hobbies. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Was there any reason for this list, Gav?
I was just curious to see where they were disappearing to.
Have you had a lot of people disappearing?
I have had a retiree and a mother-to-be disappear.
Right, okay.
So they were the...
Good reasons, at least.
They were very good reasons,
feel reassured. But yeah, you're right. If they just drop out the course and you don't get any reason and they don't write to you and you never hear from them again, leaves you wondering.
It does.
What happens? And I think some people do just lose the motivation to come, unfortunately. It's just how it is. You often start a course with a lot more students than you finish with.
That's true. They've got a lot of enthusiasm at the beginning, but maybe they drop off as the course goes on.
And I don't blame myself for that. Maybe I should, but, I think it's just part of life.
We're not responsible for everything, Em.
That's true.
It must be time for...
Quiz of the Week.
Now, I would like to identify exactly which country you should be in teaching English, Em.
Should be in teaching English?
Yes.
In.
Which country you should be in?
Should be in?
No, should be
okay.
living in?
Okay.
Should be...
Should be? I don't really understand. Should be in a country?
Well, according to internationalteflacademy.com, where should you teach abroad quiz...
Okay, now I understand.
They will identify where you should be.
Oh, according to a quiz that tells... Oh, is it one of those type of quizzes?
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Ooh, fun.
I would suggest all of the followers also check this out because you might find where you should be too.
So I'm going to answer lots of questions and it's then going to tell me the perfect country for me. Wow.
Let's begin. It's a multiple choice quiz and you need to choose the best description for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready. It says, describe yourself. There are 6 options and I'm going to choose the fourth one. I want to be fully immersed in a completely different culture.
Cool.
Next one. Which best describes your level of education? That's easy. Click. It says next, which best describes your current level of teaching experience?
You're very experienced at teaching. Which option are you going to choose?
Well, it's with or without training, but also with or without experience. So I have experience and I have training at the same time. The next one, my travel experience looks something like... So I need to choose which one fits me. I have travelled abroad extensively and I'm always planning trips. So that's me. What's next? What's driving you to teach abroad?
That's a good question.
I would say I am already a teacher and I want to see the world. The next one says, how important is teaching in a country that provides you with free housing? Well...
That's a good question.
Good question, but it's not really important at the moment to me. The next one says, how important is teaching in a country that provides or reimburses your airfare? Not a deal breaker, Gav.
Okay, choose that one.
My ideal students are children, adults, business professionals, a mix. I don't have a preference. I'm going to go with adults for that one. Let's talk earnings. Which situation best describes you? I'm going to choose... I am in it for the experience and I'm happy just breaking even.
What is it to break even?
You get what you put in. Don't make anything, you don't lose anything.
Good.
The next question is about my ideal holiday. My ideal getaway. It's got nice pictures. Oh, it's hard to choose. They all look good. Something Instagrammable. No. Bright lights, big city. Spiritual voyage. An old world escape. On the water or no Wi-Fi, please. I'm going to go with bright lights, big city.
That sounds cool.
Which weather scenario best describes you? Sun, sun, sun. No, not too much sun. I hate the cold weather with a passion. I love sitting on snow. I think I want all 4 seasons, to be honest.
I love all 4 seasons.
Yeah, Where would you take your international boo on your first date? I'm not planning on getting an international boo, but let's just say, for example, hypothetically, I'm going to say a picnic. Choose a dish. Oh, there's lots of tasty food. I can see where they're going with this. If you choose whichever cuisine you like, they'll probably send you to one of those places. But, they're all good. They're all really good. I'm going to choose which one is applicable. Do you have an interest in teaching online? Yes, definitely. And I think we're there. We're at the end. It says, dun, 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 dun. I should go to Seoul in South Korea.
I think that would be a very good option for you because you do like that kind of food, Em.
I do, and it tells me a pro tip. Whether you're teaching here or just travelling through, you can always teach English online to fund your travels, gain more teaching experience, or earn an additional income. Aha, so you could live in South Korea but teach online.
Very true.
Nice, Gav. Have you done this quiz?
I haven't. I think I need to do it after you and see if we end up in the same place, Em.
That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? And that could be quite nice in a workshop for teachers to do as a little training exercise. See if it suits them and if it's correct.
I wonder if my students would enjoy that and see where they might end up across the world.
Could be good. Thank you, internationalteflacademy.com. That was fun.
All right, Em. I guess we've explored the world. We've explored our students. That sounds weird, doesn't it?
Sounds really weird.
We've explored teaching and learning, and I think there's just enough time to say catch you next time.
Looking forward to it, Gav. Bye for now.